Leann and the host of the Happiness on Tap podcast. I am a passionate advocate for women's health and empowerment, specializing in helping women break free from the cycle of overgiving and the stories that keep them stuck. My co-host today is Mitch Webb, a leading nervous system and holistic health coach who helps people heal from the inside out by addressing the root cause of dis-ease, unresolved trauma, and dysregulation of the nervous system. Welcome to today's live stream, and I am so excited you are here because we are talking about something that sneaks into every wellness journey and keeps us stuck: perfectionism. Have you ever told yourself, if I can't do it right, I won't do it at all? I've messed up my meal plan, so the whole week is ruined. I'll start Monday, every Monday. Yeah, been there, done that, lived there. And so today I want to talk with Mitch because this is one of his specialty areas. So Mitch, I'm going to let you take the lead here.
All right, Leann, thanks for having me on and getting us started off. Certainly perfectionism is something that can get in the way when we're trying to make changes in our life, whether that's business or personal life. And so when we're talking about perfectionism, where I like to start is just really understanding, where this perfection part comes from. And typically what that is, it's a survival strategy. So it's something that at some point in our life, it kept us safe. And usually it's from an earlier point when, love was conditional or there was a lack of safety in our environment. And so what we do is we take on that part so that we can feel like we're enough. And it sounds like, hey, if I'm just perfect, if I just thread this needle, then everything will work out. And what that is it's an illusion of safety, because what we're really trying to do there is create safety, but we're doing it from a place of controlling and putting a lot of pressure on ourselves to perform at a really high level. And it says that I can't fail, and if I do, I don't have the capacity to handle that. And that's just not true. When we have these protective parts for so long, so if we learn that when we're young, we almost start to identify with that. And that's really something to recognize. See, I am perfect. I have to be perfect. We're looking out for the haves, the shoulds, the this is the only way it has to happen. And when we can recognize that and work with that part, really just acknowledge it with some compassion, then things can really start to shift and that voice can quiet down. And we can definitely get into some of that here with some of the topics we're going to be exploring here today on our little talk.
Yeah, that is so true. And we put so much pressure on ourselves, obsessing, labeling things good and bad. And that really, that came from my childhood, as far as kind of being shamed about my weight, being told to eat certain foods, or, I would just gain more weight, or people were going to be watching me when I ate. And so there is so much that not only do we put on ourselves, but other people have put on us. And so I know that a lot of tools that people can use to kind of break that perfectionism. And I want to show people that it's not an all or nothing thing. We're human. We can make mistakes. We can learn from our mistakes. You don't have to eat perfect 7 days a week. You can have a life and be able to do things. And I let perfectionism take me down a really dark road, so bad that I lost friends and family because they said I was no longer any fun to be around. So there's a lot there that, I think we can kind of help people with.
Yeah, totally. It's when we have this perfectionism, there's also really closely tied to it, I feel like, is this inner critic. And you kind of nailed that by whose voice is that? It's usually embodying and impersonating an early childhood figure. So maybe that's a teacher or a coach, could be a parent. It's really hard to catch sometimes because it can really be dressed up as this um, motivating voice, and maybe we needed that motivation, or it's the lack of having that part in our life. So if our parents, let's say, are absent, this part may be more critical and more on board because we didn't have that feedback, we didn't have structure as a kid. And so it's kind of cool that we create what we need, right? And so that's where I really like to start with it, is just recognizing that, man, this part really kept us safe. And can we just turn towards that part, right? So if we get really quiet and we slow down, and we start to just bring this idea of an inner critic, or a part that feels like it needs to be perfect, and you can just say that out loud, like inner critic. And if we're really quiet and we're feeling our butt in our chair, we're here in the moment, what comes up? Is there an image? Like for me, it would be an image of like a part, and people that aren't watching, I'm pointing a finger and I'm scolding and I'm just beating the hell out of myself. And so that could be one image. It could be, I've seen other images where there's like, I don't know, fire breathing out and it's so mad, and or maybe it's got a whistle like a coach. I got my little necklace here, so I'm just uh, demanding performance. And so, um, can we just get an image of that? Can we notice how does our body feel? So we're making it a somatic practice here, because it's really easy to go into our head and think our way to safety, and that's part of what perfection is. But how do we really embody and feel this part, turn towards it, and actually say thank you, say thank you for keeping me safe when I didn't have any other resources. Um, and when we start to build out the sensation that we may feel in our body, maybe some images, we start to notice behaviors or even emotions that come up. We start to kind of put all this together, and we can see this meaning that comes up. And really, what we want to get from this part is, what do you need? What's going on? If we think about this as a part that's maybe been a part of our life and even become our identity for a really long time, when that part shows up, what do we normally do? We slam the door. It's raining outside and there's a big thunderstorm, and this little version of us is knocking at the door, and it wants help, it wants safety, it wants love. And so we slam that door. And so part of healing is really turning towards that, acknowledging with compassion that, man, this part really kept me safe, and what does it need? And when we can do that, when it feels heard, when it feels acknowledged, maybe that voice gets louder. And what I really love is, so if we know that we have this part that's berating us, that's beating us up, that's kicking our butt, can we bring in this compassionate part, this nurturing part, and acknowledge and hear and feel what's going on when we notice this perfected part come up, and how can we soothe that and say, hey, that's not what's going on. Maybe you can think of someone in your life that was there soothing. Maybe I think of my grandfather growing up. He was always the one to kind of take me under my wing and tell me everything's okay. And we can do that to ourselves. That's what reparenting is. So a lot of healing is just acknowledging, turning towards, listening to what it has to say, and then develop this nurturing part, whether that's imagined or working one-on-one with a therapist, or a coach, or whatever that may be, to start to actually nurture those parts that really needed attention and feel like they have to be perfect to be loved, because ultimately that's just not true. And if we're identifying with that, that's what we're saying here, is this really going to keep us stuck?
Yeah, I think for me, mine was all shame driven,
Mm-hmm.
and either shame driven or driven for self validation or for external validation.
Mm-hmm.
And so those two things together would butt heads. with the shame side, I wanted to cover up sneak eating, which then led to, the opposite end of the extreme behaviors in counting every calorie and, thinking that I had to stay so rigid, so that I could achieve that external validation, which for me was, my ex-husband, and thinking, well, if I lose all this weight, then he'll want me. But it was like, I went from multiple, like, shame from my family, my mother, to shame when I found out that my husband was having an affair, to shame in finding out about things he was saying to others about me. So, and then thinking I could fix all of that.
Yeah.
By looking better, doing better, whatever. And what really helped me was community. Mm-hmm. I joined a community, and just having a group of supportive women that made me shut all those voices down and help me empower myself and love myself. Like, self-love was the biggest hurdle for me. And it came at a point where I went and tried on my first pair of pants after dropping like 65 pounds. And in my brain, I was still so much heavier. And so I only allowed myself to go down one size when I pulled pants off the rack. And it just kept going down and going down and going down. And until I was, just like a puddle of tears on the floor, because I couldn't believe what that was telling me, that I couldn't see for myself or feel for myself.
What was that telling you that you couldn't see?
That I wasn't that fat person in my head. And even though I had all the things that told me I wasn't, because I was, of course, tracking my measurements, taking photos, I could see the changes. I could feel the changes in my confidence when I'd be out in public. Mm-hmm. But like looking in a mirror, I could still see who I was, not who I had become. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's
powerful.
That was some tough stuff. But at the same time,
thank you for having the vulnerability to share that. I think a lot of people can benefit from that. It's funny how even when we've gotten, achieved the result that we're looking for, and we're looking at it in the mirror, but it's like our perception is saying, that's just not true. We can't have that. Yet it's staring you back in the mirror. And I can totally understand how community is so powerful in that situation, because they can really reflect back to us what's actually going on and what they see. And that's one of my that kind of goes perfectly into one of my tips is, perfection says I'm never going to be enough. And so can we just there's a thing called glimpsing, right? So if my perfection tendencies are getting in the way and I'm saying I'm never going to be enough, can I glimpse into reality and see that, oh man, some of the things that I really want, I already have, right? For me, that really was part of my healing journey. Kind of similar to you. It's like, I will be enough when my symptoms are better. I can be enough when, there's a point in my journey where all the things that I love to do, all the things that made me who I am, so I thought, I wasn't able to do anymore. So like I wasn't able to exercise. I could not eat food at one point. My libido went out the window when my hormones got really bad, and so I wasn't having sex. And these are all pretty big things that most humans can do. And so you can get into this thing of like really comparing yourself to others, and really beating yourself up for these things that I should be able to do. when we say should, that's really, it's shitting on ourselves, right? And so part of the journey back is really something I do with my clients, is like a book of proof, because healing is slow. It doesn't happen overnight. And we have to learn to recognize and celebrate the small wins along the way. And so that glimpsing is looking over and saying, oh man, you know what? Like when I started doing the nervous system healing work, um, these things, when they came back online, it was easier for me to go, that's not a sign of healing. Like that's not a good thing. So for me, it may be I accidentally did a workout one day. I was like working in the yard and I had to set a timer before that. So here's me trying to control it, trying to create safety through control. Um, and then I just started doing Irene Lyons, my mentor's program, and had a buddy over, went outside, and I'm busting wood for an hour, and I almost froze because I didn't think I could do that. Um, but working through that, that's how I started to recognize that I could work out again. Same thing with food and eating more food, eating more than one time a day, because my system had so much tension in it, so much activation and freeze from years of dysregulation. The system eases up a little bit at a time, and we're constantly contracting and expanding, and we're so used to looking at the contractions and the things that are negative. We really want to glimpse and see, oh man, there's a whole lot more going on here, and I am expanding, I am getting better. And it's just like you looking in the mirror and having someone there to validate that, like, damn, Leann, you are looking good, girl. And that can really go a long way, because we've been conditioned to think that we're not good enough and that we got to be perfect. And that putting in the reps and seeing and using resources like other people and community to help us validate that's a beautiful thing. So, congratulations to you.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm right there with you on the celebrating wins. Like that was huge for me as well. And some of that also came from control. So like I kept a notebook with me when I would go to the gym, but it was, I was keeping track of like what I was doing so that the next day I was starting at a better place. I wasn't, did I push 200 pounds with my legs and then the next day come in and start back at 100? It was kind of telling me, no, you can do this. Mm-hmm. You just need to remember that you can do this. Mm-hmm. And so that helped me in that aspect. I knew what I was capable of. Same with learning to run. Never been a runner, didn't like it, didn't even want to do it. And then one day I just decided I needed to do this. I needed to show myself that I could do it, whether I liked it or didn't like it, and fell in love with it. And then it was, going with a friend and running a 5K or a 10K and being able to celebrate. I can run that long. Like I have breath and I don't get winded. And of course I'd quit smoking years before, but that was just always one of those things that kind of lurked in the background, was that I used to be a smoker. And now I'm, able to run, and, I get to celebrate. Well, I get to buy new shoes because I wore out a pair of tennis shoes. But just loving being out in nature and seeing the world from outside of a car, And so, yeah, I love celebrating wins was huge. And then at one point, I had a home gym. And got to a point where I knew that I needed safety because I didn't feel safe in my own home gym because it was just me by myself. And I knew that I was lifting pretty heavy, and I was afraid that if something should happen to me, nobody's going to even know. Excuse me. So I joined a gym, and then I had friends that, were excited when I was there every day and would, want to do workouts together to motivate and support each other. And then in the meantime, I'd have some, new person come up and be like, you're here every day. Like, how do you keep coming? How are you so motivated? And I'm just like, look at all this cool stuff that we get to play with all day. I didn't have to buy it. And then it went to even being hired by the gym. So then that was that next level. It was like, okay, I'm seeing more and more benefit. Now I get to come here for free, play with all the great toys, hang out with all the people that are excited for me to be there and who support me and motivate me. Like there was no greater win than just having that motivation every day to get up and get out of bed and throw on my shorts and head to the gym.
So what I'm hearing is that we heal in community. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then I had to write down, you got me beat on the running because I don't know if I'm going to run unless something's chasing me.
I
But,
think I would either, but I started with baby steps, downloaded an app, and just kept doing it every day, every day, every day until I went, okay, now the treadmill's nice, but like if I'm going to be a real runner, I need to be able to run outside,
yeah.
whether it was on asphalt or on a track. Uh, so then that was the next big phase. But I also got to do that with a friend.
Mm-hmm.
I had a work friend that worked at a company across the street, and she's like, let's go out for lunch. Let's just go run 30 minutes at lunch. Then it was 45 minutes, and it was like, okay, we really got to get back. I'm not going to have time to change clothes and get back to work. And
Yeah.
it just became a quick love for just, again, being in community, being with a friend. Then we started running 5Ks together. And then you're meeting more friends that want to go do the same thing. So yeah, I'm very much community driven.
Mm-hmm.
And I also attach it for sure to my safety, even in my, general healing, inner child work, guided meditations. I can do those for the most part by myself, but the deep work, I need community. I need somebody to make sure I'm gonna be all right instead of just trying to push myself into those dark holes alone.
Oh, I love it. I love that. Thank you for sharing that with us. It's such a great example of of building true safety. And in this work, when we're working on the nervous system, it's always safety first. We have to establish safety and capacity in the nervous system to be able to regulate and work with those unprocessed stored emotions and memories and stressors. And typically when we come to this work, we may have symptoms that we want to get rid of. And part of my journey was recognizing that these symptoms were actually a good thing, and they were a part of a bodily process and a body that was trying to communicate with me. But we separate from our body and we rely on external sources to feel safe, or we control, or we become perfect or black and white or all or nothing, or these are all just survival mechanisms. And instead of trying to get rid of anxiety, what I had to recognize is that I'm really looking for safety, and so this all begins with awareness. And that, hey, I'm moving some heavier weight and this doesn't feel safe. So you could be perfect, which would be avoiding the thing that's actually helping you, avoiding the gym, avoiding exercise, or avoiding the intensity that you're craving. And that takes a lot of awareness, to say, like, I need help and I'm going to go get help. And then kind of highlighting the we heal in community. We build actual safety because we're doing the reps. We're seeing that it's not going to hurt us. That's what safety is. Safety is just self-trust. So trusting that no matter what happens, I'm going to be okay. And so I've got this new thing that feels a little bit threatening, that feels outside of my current capacity. And so what do I need? I need a resource, and that's going to be a community. that builds me up, that validates it, that helps me feel more safe doing this hard thing. And wow, what a gift that is to see that yes, I can do these hard things and I can be safe. And then I love that you went from, I talk about sometimes this universal law, right? We're in service of self, or we're in service of others. And a lot of times with this journey, we start out as it's a service of self, right? Like, I need to heal, I want to get better, and there's nothing wrong with that. And we do that, and it takes us to this other part where, like, now I'm ready to serve others. Now I'm ready to work at the gym. Now I'm ready to educate. Now I'm ready to share, these obstacles that I've overcome with people that are in similar situations. I think that's what both of us are trying to do. So I just wanted to highlight and celebrate that. And have one more thing to kind of to share as a tip as we're wrapping up here, and that's to hurry up and fail. Perfection comes from this part of us that doesn't have the capacity to be criticized or to do it wrong and to fail. And that's a lot of times that's because that's our early conditioning and that's what we needed to survive. But really using the brain to come in and do a little brain retraining is to recognize that that failure is feedback, that there is no such thing as failure, that how we learn and grow and adapt to our environments, the things that we're trying to accomplish is through feedback. Like, so hurry up and fail and see and learn from it. And eventually I think we can start to crave that and like, man, give me feedback. Or we just think about the opposite of that is just I'm gonna wait till I'm perfect, so I'm just frozen here in time. And man, I've been there so many times and continue to work with this myself. And so, hurry up and fail. And then also, and the way you do that is just by starting where you're at, starting messy. So that doesn't mean you have to do it all at once. It means, okay, here's a sentence that you could figure. Given that I'm X, and maybe that's I'm tired, I'm anxious, I'm having resistance, I feel like I'm not good enough. So it's not to push that away, it's to acknowledge it. Hey, yeah, I'm feeling this way. And what's one step that I can take? And I know that's something recent that I can share is putting some of this content out online about the nervous system and things that have helped me. And when you do this work, you can get tired, you can get activated. That's really it's par for the course, it's part of the game. And there's days that I show up and I don't feel like I can do that. And so can I acknowledge that and take one step? And it's kind of like a chain that as you follow that, it's building what you talked about earlier. It's building awareness, it's building safety, it's building capacity. It's showing me I didn't die, that I can do it, and I don't have to be perfect. And that's how that voice over time quiets down. We build self-trust, we build the confidence, and then it's just another thing. We were talking about that as we got on. So much of this work is just doing it. Just do it like as you are now. And if anybody can take anything away from this, is you're enough. And what's one step? It doesn't have to be perfect.
Yep, absolutely. I love that. Those are definitely things that kind of keep me going. Is just, yeah, what can I do today that's good enough? What's one small step that I can take? And taking time to really acknowledge where I've come from to where I'm at. And like you said, just being able to then turn that into being in service of others and showing them, you're not alone. I've been there. I've done it. These are the tools I use to help me get through each day, to be stronger each day. And celebrating the wins was huge, and asking for help. Yeah, that was definitely something. I could try something, or I could learn something from a video, but knowing that I could save myself time and energy and maybe even injury by just asking for help from somebody else and saying, hey, could you, spot me, or can you help me with form so I make sure I'm not going to injure myself? so that I get the most out of why I'm here and what I'm doing. And that was powerful for me because you also never know who's watching.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if I'm improving and I'm going harder, then maybe somebody else will be willing to try.
Amen.
And so that's what I loved about it was just getting over the fear, asking for help, taking the next step. And even if that meant asking for help in a couple more days for the next level, that was fine. Learning to breathe right. Just learning different techniques for improvement is so huge in our journey and for how we can share that with others.
Yeah. Amen. I think that's great. So what's we know right now that this is a pattern of perfectionism, let that float into your field. Let's just be aware that there's an inner critic, there's a part that feels like it's got to be perfect, and let's just go into the observer mode. That's one thing to kind of pull us out of the experience. I'm having the thought that I need to be perfect here. I'm noticing there's an inner critic. I'm having thoughts that there's an inner critic here. You can almost think like it's someone sitting beside you. And so you don't have to go in and use all these, what we've provided today is like an outline, some awareness, and really a couple of tips to go along with this. And the way that I would suggest going about this is use it like a buffet. Go with what resonates and what doesn't. But pick one thing, and I think a great place is just really starting with an awareness and just starting to recognize, like, oh man, I'm doing this a lot. There was a group course that I did earlier this week, and they were talking about this inner critic and how it was tied to perfection. And once you can see it, you don't have to be it. And that can take a while to unpack that. And I did that course, and the next morning I woke up and this thing was screaming at me. And like I said earlier, just acknowledging that instead of like reacting or joining in on the beating yourself up, just, oh wow, I'm really having a lot of thoughts right now that are telling me this or that, and how can I recognize that they're thoughts and then maybe turn towards that a little bit. And I can say that when I did that, the symptoms that I was experiencing could be something like fatigue or anxiety, let's say. That lets a little bit off the pressure valve. And in our healing work, it's really easy to take our previous patterns and tendencies into our work, and man, that's really going to block you. And so and I'm recognizing that in myself as well. And so how can we build the awareness, go into that observer mode to kind of take us out of the being in it, and create a little bit of space between these parts in us, and that way we can just build more awareness. And that's when it's great to reach out to a coach, to a therapist, to someone that can help us with that, and then we can really work with it in a co-regulated space. And certainly both of us are talking more about this on our pages and social media, websites, stuff like that. So we love questions, and we'd love to hear more about that. And if there's ways that we can help, certainly reach out, leave some comments in the questions below.
That's perfect way to kind of tie it all together. Just a recap, perfectionism isn't the path. It is definitely the block. Progress, flexibility, and self-kindness and compassion is what leads to lasting change. As Mitch mentioned, we both have personalized custom coaching programs. If you're looking for someone, if either one of our stories resonated with you, head over to our websites, check out our YouTube channels. There will be links in the show notes. And remember, your worth isn't how perfect your routine is. It's how lovingly you show up for yourself, one moment at a time. Thank you so much for joining me today, Mitch. I know that there's a lot of people who are going to resonate with this, and I appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Thank you, Leanne. It was my pleasure.